my media screenshots for my advert. As you can see, I started with a blank layer. I then changed the colour of the layer to make sure the rip effect was more obvious. I added noise and made sure it was black and white. I also then blurred the noise to 3 pixels. This made it more obvious when the blur effect happened, when I made the rip in the paper. I then took my lasso tool and made a squiggly line almost of where the rip is originally going to be. I then added splatter and rip and stroke to all of this to make the rip look more effective. In a minute I'm going to change the levels of output so it changes the colours slightly and it makes the rip more effective. I duplicated my layer and shift the top one upwards after changing the output so you could see the rip, so there's actually 3 different layers now. The 3 layers, I then added an image on the top layer, and then I added some words so it looked like it'd been teared from a magazine or a newspaper, and it's the same couple of paragraphs but just repeated so it can be seen more than once. I then added a black background which I think really brings out her face. I then added I tried to add the date and time of the documentary, but as you can see I don't like the way it's positioned and where it is, so I'll come back to that later. But I then moved on to changing the title. The title was called The Penelope Case and I've changed it to the case called Penelope. I started out by writing the words out and then I added a texture to it. I added a texture which made it look all gradient-y and I thought that went very well with the tear in the page. I also then added an outline, so I did stroke and then I added an inward shadow which made it look really appealing. I then didn't like the position so I moved it. I enlarged the P so the Penelope was bigger and there was a focal point on the page. I also added the case. I added the same layout and then added the case called Penelope. This is my final stage at this moment in time and I just have to add the date and time. This is where I added the date and time, so I added I changed the brush so it was scattered and then I added it along the bottom. This made it look interesting, different almost, and then I thought about adding stars because I had a gap, but with discussions with my teachers we're still trying to figure out what we should put there. So as you can see I put 3 layers of stars to make it, you know, like the Daily Mail said this. Now this is the final product with the stars, but in the end I decided I didn't like the stars, so I've taken them back off and this is my final product at the moment.